Throughout her lifetime, Nina gave her time and resources to organizations helping people in need, protecting animals and nature, and enriching the communities of Phoenix and Indianapolis. Her final challenge was to create a legacy that would go on long after her life ended. And that is how the Nina Mason Pulliam Charitable Trust came to be.
You know, she was beautiful and she was brilliant. She was a lot of fun to be around. She was a practical person. Family was the tapestry in Nina's life that gave her strength, and she gave them strength. They lived in a very rural area in southern Indiana. There were 7 children. There were 3 girls and then a boy, and then 3 more girls. Nina was the 4th child, so she followed that favored boy in a family of girls.
You know, her father was an orchardist and didn't make much money, and her mother was a deeply religious lady, and I think that spirit and knowledge of God when she was a child carried over in her life.
In Nina's family, words were so important. Her parents were highly educated. The family of 7 children lived in a rather isolated area, and so they read books, they grew up among books, they wrote stories, they wrote poems, they told each other stories and made up plays, and words were the main thing in their life. And the girls all grew up to be writers in some way. In that era, you went into the town school in Martinsville, and you had to take examinations so they'd know exactly where to place you. She placed so highly that she had to go to high school right out of the 6th grade. Nina learned at that time how important education is and how lots of times a person just needs a hand to get that education.
Her parents, of course, insisted that all the children be the very best they could be. She was quite a competitor. For such a tiny person, she was a basketball player in high school.
She was a young woman when she first came to Arizona. She was diagnosed with tuberculosis when she was in high school, and she came out here by herself. No family member came with her. She lived in a little house near Camelback Mountain, and the dry air, the sunshine, helped her recover from tuberculosis. And she rode her horse around Camelback Mountain and fell in love with Arizona at that time. Nina just adored Gene, and I'm sure that he did her. They had a lovely, long, strong marriage. They supported each other. They were not exactly alike. They complemented each other very well. But their interests and their aims in life were the same. And she was devoted to him, and he was the most important thing in her life. She knew that and always lived by that every day. She also loved her family. She took tender care of all of her sisters, her parents, and her nieces and nephews. She remained close to everybody all of her life. Animals were profoundly a part of her life.
Well, she loved children probably as much as she loved animals. She had a wonderful smile and a great laugh.
She had a good sense of humor. She really did. She was a pleasure to work with.
Hard work, hard play. She loved to have a good time. People thought that she was an Iron Maiden, and she really wasn't an Iron Maiden. She had a very warm, sensitive heart.
Nina was the first woman in Indiana to receive a pilot's license.
When she came into the room just lit up. You just loved being around her. She was so much fun always. She could be really tough too when she felt you needed some backbone, but she was a delightful person.
She read all the time. She thoroughly loved the written word.
Nina was one of the finest wordsmiths I've ever known.
Pulliam started traveling extensively a few years after World War II ended, so in the late 1940s. It's incredible to think about it, but it could not have been easy at that time, but they shared their experiences with their readers as they made their travels. And by the time they ended their travels, say 20 years later, they had gone to 78 countries. In the early 1950s, Mrs. Pulliam traveled alone for 4 months, covering 40,000 miles to see Fiji, New Zealand, and Australia, Within a year of coming back home, she wrote and published a major travel memoir on her travels and experiences in Australia. I think that's incredible.
I really liked her. I get a little emotional about it, you know, but she was quite a woman. She really was.
She was a business success because she was smart to start off with, and she had grown up with the business. She started working for Gene in 1932, so she'd been with him for a long, long time. She was committed to all the proprieties of Robert's Rules of Order, good grammar, and good writing. Always was very strict about not only the newspaper, but any documents that were prepared. Always had to be letter perfect.
Nina had worked at Farm Life, which was a national magazine in Spencer, Indiana, that folded during the Depression. From there, she went to work for Eugene C. Pulliam, who owned and published a newspaper in the small town of Lebanon, Indiana. They fell in love and were married there. Together, they built a newspaper empire. They owned many papers through the course of their long lives together. Most important were the Indianapolis Star and the Indianapolis News, as well as in Arizona, the Arizona Republic and the Phoenix Gazette.
Gene, her husband, allowed her so much freedom to do things with the business and actually relied on her quite a bit. Few people realize that, but he considered her his partner and consulted her about everything, every decision.
She was the end of the funnel. And so she was the one that he would test any major decision on, such as purchasing properties, anything major. Nina was always the source in that. Nina had the ability to look at a profit and loss statement and hit right on the spot where it was very, very sensitive. She had an accountant's eye and I guess a journalist's mind as well. So she had a great combination. She was the businesswoman, Gene was the journalist.
He was proud of her, I would say that. And she was good counsel to him, and I know he checked almost everything he did with her for her approval before proceeding.
When she was publisher of the paper after Gene's death, there were some remarkable challenges there, financially as well as policy, and how to run the newspapers, how to cover certain types of stories. She handled those things very brilliantly. It was a wonderful experience to watch her do that. It was certainly a challenging time for the papers.
And I think in a good business, the employees need to be happy with where they worked. And Nina had a definite concern for the life and well-being of her employees.
We were the first paper to have a pension program of all the newspapers in the United States. The first newspaper to have a recreation center for its employees in Indianapolis and in Phoenix. And these were unheard of things. In fact, they were highly criticized by other publishers about, you're giving away too much.
Nina always said she was a woman's woman. She believed that women are extremely capable and very strong and very smart. As she started out in business, women didn't have much role in business. She was able to break the glass ceiling, if you will, and she helped other women to do that.
Nina made speeches all over the country to women's groups to inspire them, to say, if I did this, you can do it.
I had people who were willing to give me opportunities. A lot of women aren't. And I believe that I had the opportunities that I had at the newspaper because Nina was there. I mean, Nina was pushing and wanted women to move ahead in a very male-dominated industry.
She was the first woman ever elected to Sigma Delta Chi, and that was strictly through her own accomplishments.
Nina said to me many times, you need to give back to the community in which you live. She practiced that, and she certainly believed it.
Always a philosophy at the newspapers to give back in a very big way, a very generous way in the community. And that kind of philosophy starts at the top.
That is why in the foundation, she insisted the money would be divided between the states of Indiana, where she was born and raised, and where they made their first investments, and then out here in Phoenix, Arizona.
Once you achieved a certain level of financial security yourself, to take care of your own family, then you needed to share your resources with the community.
She felt that education was the foremost thing for anybody, and it provided equality to the races, it provided equality to the sexes. If you had education, you could stand on your own 2 feet.
Well, she was real strong on education. She made sure that I went to college, even though I'm sure I wasn't. And she saw to it that I was enrolled, and she gave me encouragement there. But she also encouraged other children to go to college, and she provided many scholarships for the employees' children.
What more meaningful thing could Mrs. Pulliam have done but to leave all of her assets in Central newspapers to charity? Therefore, the Trust's mission statement captures her interests and the essence of her values. Very simply stated, the Trust mission statement is to help people in need, protect animals and nature, and enrich community life in Indianapolis and Phoenix. The Trust launched the Nina Scholars Program in 2001 after about a year of internal study in the field of education and college education, and looking and listening to not only the experts on college campuses, but also some of the recipients of our support through our grantees. And the one thing that was identified and discussed the most as a barrier was lack of education or lack of higher education. So it seemed natural to create a scholarship program for what then was considered non-traditional students. Students, mainly older adults, or at least non-traditional college-age students, who maybe had had a little bit of college or no college at all, or had a very bad experience with it, have subsequently started a family and were looking for to advance themselves, particularly economically, and to provide some security for their family. So they were the first group. The next group grew out of Mrs. Pulliam's interest in people who had disabilities. So adults with disabilities or traditionally aged college students with physical disabilities was the second category. And the third looked at the needs of children becoming young adults who were growing out of age, out of child welfare system where they had been raised. And if you look at the statistics for young people of had that background of upbringing, they're very, very dire in terms of what can predict their success. Often within a few years, 50% of them can be homeless.
So we chose those 3 areas and those 3 groups because we felt that those were ones that often were being overlooked by other scholarship support programs, and that that particular demographic is one that we as a country need to pay attention to.
The Nina Scholars Program is a very unique program. It takes a holistic approach toward the success of students from backgrounds that are characterized by challenge, by obstacles, by barriers to their success. A holistic approach is paying attention to not just their financial needs, not just their academic needs, but also focusing really on other challenges that will impact their ability to succeed academically.
I think what made it unique is that there was a foundation, the Nina Trust, was willing to take a chance on a program that's complicated. You know, it's 4 institutions in 2 cities. It is students that keep coming in each year, and we're willing to invest in a model that wasn't proven. And as I said earlier, took on the highest risk students. It wasn't like they took on the problem that was easy to solve, but it was the right thing to do.
I think going back to the eligibility categories, the 3 populations of students is one of the defining marks of the program. I think the other thing is that we have realized that it's not either or in terms of having financial support or social support. It's really the magic of bringing the 2 together under one umbrella and really maximizing resources. We know that having at least a go-to person, that coordinator that is there to be a facilitator, a listener, a barrier breaker.
I think of myself as a guide, a teacher, and a facilitator of learning.
It gives them a single point of contact, which is, I think, really important on a campus.
Because, you know, I work closely with the other directors, is that we're really focused on and model helping students find their strengths, recognize and discover their strengths, discover their values, their passions, and ultimately their purpose and their sense of meaning. And that becomes their guide in the world. It becomes their compass to success.
One of the things that we've been surprised and encouraged by is how infectious the Nina Scholars Program has become. And what I mean by infectious is that I think many of the scholars have been able to inoculate not only their immediate environment in terms of fellow students and being on the campus, but really making a statement and impact in their families.
I think another really outstanding result now of the Nina Scholars Program, which is now we have about a 66% graduation or continuing student success rate, is the number of students who have, at the community college level, who've gone on successfully as a passport student to our two participating universities as well to get bachelor's degrees. From there, we've had a significant number of graduates who've gone on to graduate school.
When we first developed the program, we felt that having a standard for a GPA made a lot of sense, that we should not assume that because students who were non-traditional and who may be coming to school for the first time or college for the first time, that they should be low achievers. So we built into our requirements a GPA attainment that students who are to remain in the program and to graduate in the program must have a 2.75 as a minimum. And we're proud to say that our students overall have been able to have a collective or aggregate number of 3.0 or higher as an average, which again, when you compare that to the general population at either Ivy Tech or IUPUI, is considerably higher.
Some of them are graduating in less than 4 years at a university level where we've given them 6 years to graduate. So I think that's tremendous, and I think it's been a great influence on the rest of their family, their children, their siblings, if they're married, their spouses, to try harder, to work harder, to organize themselves in a way that can be more effective over time, to really give it all it takes and do it in such a way with a lot of discipline and a lot of hope. And then find time to give back to their community, which community service is part of this program as well, and to support their fellow students. That is what's really terrific about this program.
So why it's a model is because we have taken the most challenged students in these three categories, put them in this great program that provides support, financial aid, and social support, and shown that they can be successful. So we've answered that question of, can we make challenged students succeed? Can we help them do that? And the answer is yes.
One of the things that our Nina Scholars longitudinal study did as we looked at the program and began to assess its value added, it was to look at the impact of what receiving a college degree meant in terms of really a financial analysis. And what that showed us is that Nina Scholars, when compared to others who did not receive a degree, that they were able to attain or earn about $500,000 more than their counterparts who may not have received a college education.
Indiana ranks in the bottom 20% in the country in baccalaureate degree holding adults. This is our problem. And so one reason I have been so focused on baccalaureate degree attainment here is because Indiana as a state so desperately needs that.
Really, those without a college degree are at a serious disadvantage. In fact, the U.S. Census Bureau has determined that those with a college degree, when you look at unemployment rates, it's probably somewhere closer to about 5%. However, those without a college degree, it's above 15%, that's a dramatic difference between, again, the haves and the have-nots.
And NINA has shown us that we can do it with at-risk students. And so I've tried to use the NINA scholars as taking off the table anyone saying certain students can't finish. Takes it off. I mean, you can't tell me that just because you're a returning adult with a family that you can't finish. The NINA Scholar shows you can. Just ends the conversation. You say, okay, what did we learn? How can we do it? Because there have been discussions in my previous lives where you essentially threw up your hands and said, is it possible certain groups can't finish? And this has shown 3 groups demonstrate that's not true.
What this allows many families to do is to, again, not only role model to an up-and-coming generation, but it also can have a financial benefit to the family as well, particularly as education is used in order to be able to get gainful employment and to be able to advance in a career. And so you're setting a new pattern and a new trend in many families that maybe have not had that historical precedence.
It's wonderful to see that as scholars change in a very positive ways, as they grow, as they learn, it shapes their relationships, it shapes their homes. And so it inspires family members, it inspires friends to do things, to get out of their comfort zone, to stretch themselves, because that's what we're asking the scholars to do. So it has such a positive effect, a ripple effect on the families, on their networks of friends, and then ultimately on the community.
I'm a first-generation college student. I know that I'm creating a tradition that I want my children to follow, that I want them to see this is the way of our life. This is who we are. We are a special kind.
What really gets me about this legacy and what she has done, and I say this over and over again, a complete stranger that I never met, however many years ago, decided I want to help people from challenging backgrounds to succeed in school. And she said, here you are. And she gave a monetary donation to help alleviate the cost of going to school. Words cannot describe. Every day I'm thankful for being a NINA Scholar because I believe this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
It really has done more than I was expecting it to. I was expecting mostly the financial help, but I've grown such a family here with people. It's just not something you would expect from a scholarship program. And it's just been a great bonding experience, and the volunteer work has really gotten me more into volunteering.
The NINA Scholars Program is truly has been maybe the single best thing that has happened to me since I've been at Ivy Tech. I can go home and study at night and not worry about, is my tuition going to be paid? Will I have the support system there if I have a problem, someone to kind of help me maintain that mental stability that a student needs in college?
Charlie, who's the director of the NINA Scholars Program here at IUPUI.
He told me very early on that he was my #1 cheerleader. And that has stuck with me.
He's just an awesome guy overall. He is really all for having you progress through life. I've talked to him about going for my master's already. And he's really just about you advancing in life.
Yes, you can do it. Yes, the lies or the situation that happened before in your past doesn't have to stop you to succeed in school. You can do anything. I mean, I live, breathe, work. I'm a poster child almost for what can be done.
There were 8 students that were selected nationally to come to the Community College Summit at the White House. I was one selected from Ivy Tech Community College. Jill Biden sent one of her representatives to my school, and I was the student representative to kind of give her my story and how I became the student that I am today. Through that experience, she was impressed with me as a student and what I had accomplished and decided to invite me to the summit.
Being here, I've had the opportunity because of being in school. 2 years ago, I won Outstanding Minority Student in my degree program, which is CIT, so I got an award just for being me. I also just last year got to sit on the board for the search committee for the Dean of University College, just for being me.
I have been playing power soccer since I was 16. I started with a Division II team, which is one of the lower levels, and after 2 years on that team, I moved up to a Division I team, which is currently a 3-time national winning team, Circle City Rollers.
Becoming a NINA Scholar definitely has changed me as far as my parenting beliefs. I'd have to say just understanding Mrs. Pulliam and kind of the way that she believed in her community, the way that she, you know, her goal was to give back as much as possible. That has kind of hit home in my heart, to make sure that my children understand that you just aren't a citizen in your community. You have to make sure that, you know, you are giving the resources that you can, if you have them available, to enrich the community, because, you know, without that, what do we have?
Mrs. Pulliam inspires us by all of the stuff she did for her community and things like that. We continue to do what Mrs. Pulliam did with her life by volunteering in the community, trying to better ourselves so maybe we can even contribute later on in life to people who are in need.
What I do know is that for the last 6 years, literally, I have had a miracle in my life. And so I don't anticipate that miracle stopping just because school is stopped. So I think the sky's the limit, really.
If Mrs. Pulliam walked through that door, there really is nothing that I could say to her to let her know what she has done to my life and how she has helped me get more involved with my community.
Wow, is all I know to say to what she did. What she's done for me and my family, just wow.
If I had the opportunity to see Mrs. Pulliam, I would just give her a big hug and thank her, because she has given me the opportunity to be successful and to be a citizen in this community that has a great value.
I think Mrs. Pulliam would have wanted just what she's gotten. I really believe that we have done what she wanted to do. And with the trustees that we presently have, staff we have, I think we're doing the kind of thing that she would have been extremely proud of and satisfied with. I really believe that with all my heart, I really do.
I hope that in 50 years, the Trust will have made great impact on the lives of many individual people and their families. I hope that there will be people who can look back and say, I have a house, I got a college education, the lives of my children are better now because of this trust.